Welcome. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. We're excited. This is the first installment of a new webinar series titled Development of Maize Seed Systems in Africa. This is part of our work in the AGG program, and AGG stands for Accelerating Genetic Gains in Maize and Wheat. We started this seminar series because we were looking for a way to transmit our research findings in a way that's more practical, more down to earth, and hopefully more useful for our partners in this project. And those include seed companies, extension officers, NARS, among others. We've got four presentations or four installments of this series this year. The first one today is going to look at how smallholders take their seed purchase decisions, and we'll be looking at experiences in Kenya. The next one, next month in July, it's going to look at maize seed quality assurance and quality control. In October, our economist at IITA will be talking about marketing systems and how differences in these systems accelerate maize uptake in Nigeria. And then we'll round off the year with a presentation that looks at variation in the demand for maize seed by women farmers. And so we'll hope you'll also come back to join us for these other presentations, other parts of this series. Let me, just before I introduce our speaker today, the format for this webinar, we won't have a chat box and we won't be able to take questions from the audience. Just too many people. And but what we will do, we have invited four people from very diverse backgrounds to ask questions at the end of the webinar, and hopefully this will help to contextualize the discussion and answer any gaps that may have emerged in your minds during the presentation. So let me, without much more introduction, let me introduce our speaker for today. So Pieter Rutsaert has been with CIMMYT for a couple of years now. He leads our work on maize seed marketing. Before coming to CIMMYT, Pieter worked as a marketing consultant in Belgium and working with large-scale food processors. And then before that, he worked with the International Rice Research Institute in Los Baños, Philippines. So without much more ado, Pieter, the screen is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jason. Let me start by thanking everybody here for joining. So as Jason just told, today I will be talking in the next 40 minutes about introducing new maize varieties and what we can learn from agro-dealers and farmers and the store environment. And let me start my presentation with really complementing the work of the Global Maize Program. I think there has been tremendous success in developing new varieties, stress-tolerant varieties across the world, and tackling all kinds of stresses together with their partnership with NARS and private sector. They have done really a lot to develop these new varieties who are critical and necessary going forward. This is a recent publication also of the Global Maize Program led by Prasanna and team about all that they have been doing. And what I also need to compliment here is production. They have succeeded in getting the seed, those stress-tolerant varieties, in the market together with seed company partners. And why I say this now is because if they wouldn't have been able to do this, we wouldn't be here talking about what we are really interested in. To really start looking further, we need to have steady supply of seed. We need to have a really good, we need to have new stress-tolerant varieties in the market. And as what I mentioned here is, we are looking not at this problem, but we look at the next problem, the second generation challenge, as we like to call it. And that is more about seed delivery. How do we reach farmers with new seed products? And what's really key here is that we have there's a lot of, it's quite challenging. So we're working together with our partners, small, medium-sized companies, and there are really quite some challenges to get these seeds into the market. We're talking about growing market competition in in seed sector, especially in maize. We are working with an emerging agro-dealer sector, getting the seed to rural communities. We're still dealing with market distortions. There are programs for free seed distribution that the commercial sector is dealing with. I think there's also still a strong gap in information, timely and reliable information on seed demand that can inform these partners to get the seeds to where it needs to go. And farmers also from their end are, I think, sometimes too much uninformed by the seeds available. They don't know what all these new seeds can do, what's in store. There's a lot of work being done on this, but there's still a lot of, there's still quite some gap here. And then also the high cost for the direct marketing. So what we really want to focus on is that getting the right seed to the right farmer won't happen on its own. And just thinking it from a seed company, let's think about the basics or all the work a seed company needs to do to get their variety to the farmers. So first of all, it's about segmentation. Who are the farmers I want to reach with my variety? And where are they? What do they need? Imagine we have all that. It's about how to make them aware of this. How can I make farmers aware about that variety? And then we think about radio, we think about demonstration plots. And I think on these first two levels, segmentation and awareness, there has been quite some work done. But going further, it's about purchase. This is critical. How can I convince the farmer then to pick up my variety in store? And in a highly competitive market, in places where seeds are available, where there's different brands available for farmers. And then further think about loyalty. How can I make sure, because once my farmers buy my variety, they have to keep repurchasing it. How can I make sure that farmers come back to purchase my variety? So this is a lot of work. And large companies in the agricultural input sector really have been fully aware of these marketing efforts and needed the market efforts needed and the need to invest heavily in this. Now, 1 second, what we really are interested in is that purchase moment. So, and where do farmers purchase their seed? That is more and more at the agro-dealer. So the agro-dealer, the agro-dealers, the places where farmers get their inputs, seeds, fertilizer. For commercial seed, that is where seed supply really meets seed demand. That's where let's say all the work that seed companies have been doing meet their final destination to farmers. And what we see also about agro-dealers is that these networks exist and are expanding. Year by year, we see that farmers travel less and less distance to get their seed from agro-dealers. So that's really going the right direction. And there's quite some investment in this. And they're seen as one of the key partners necessary for scaling uptake of inputs. Looking from a seed company perspective, they also rely on them for sales and marketing. So we have been talking to those to companies, and we really have to realize that we are working in an area in sub-Saharan Africa, in countries like Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, in Eastern Africa, but also same for other areas, where logistics are tremendously difficult. A lot of times low population density, where most farmers looking for a few seed bags, small scale farming, and where we are still dealing in rural areas for infrastructure to get the products there. Secondly, and I think this is really a crucial element to highlight, is that when we talk about seeds, and especially about maize here, we talk about a very short sales window. There are, I think, in most areas, there are 1 or 2 times per year where seeds needs to be sold. And when the rain starts, I think there's about 2-3 weeks for all farmers to get their seeds. So all that seed, all those farmers have to be reached in a very short time window. Talking about information, getting information to farmers about the seed, we're also dealing with still a lot of places underfunded extension programs. So it is a long road to agro-dealer professionalization, but there's also a strong development commitment. I think organizations such as AGRA, such as the International Fertilizer Development Corporation, NGOs, they're really heavily supporting this development. But what we also think is that there's an urgent need for a shared vision on maize seed sector development that builds on existing market structures and players, incorporating these agro-dealers. So what will I now, or what will we here talk about here? What we will present in the next slides are findings from 3 studies in Kenya. And we will look more detailed at how agro-dealers sell seed to farmers, very basically. How seed companies use agro-dealers to promote their varieties. How farmers make the decision in the store. How do they actually make that choice between all these varieties available? And we also look at the view of male and female farmers on seed decisions. Secondly, so this is kind of the first part of the presentation. The next part, the second part, is we have been thinking a lot about ways forward for seed companies and the project, the AGG project and others. And we will present a way where we took a next step to see what we can do, but I'll get more into this. So first talking about the first 2 studies. So in 2019, we did 2 activities. First of all, an Agrodealer assessment. Very simple. We had a sample of 80 agro-dealers in Kenya across 10 different, we went across different agroecological zones. And what did we do? We did, as you can see on the picture here, we did a survey with the store attendant to see what his view is. The store attendant was, or the agro-dealer owner, but that could also be a manager or the staff member that really know about the maize seed sales. And secondly, we just didn't talk to the owner. We really looked at the store. What does an Agrodealer store look like? How is seed being presented? Is there any information available? And we did a store observation exercise. Next, same year, 2019, we talked to farmers. And how did we talk to farmers? We didn't go to their home or have long interviews with them at their fields. No. We talked to them right when they came out of the Agrodealer with a bag of seeds. We talked to 466 farmers in 3 different counties in Kenya, where we looked across agricultural zones, and we set up shop in front of urban as well as rural Agrodealers. And what did we do? A farmer walked in, came out of the Agrodealer with a bag of maize. We asked if he had 15 minutes for us, and we had a short interview about what seed did he buy? How did they make that decision? Why did he come to this place? And what was important for him in his seed purchase? So now I will get to the results coming out of this study. So first of all, the Agrodealer view. If we can look how if we can summarize the Agrodealer's view on maize seed sales, I think we can kind of summarize this in one sentence. What we see is that agro-dealers have a rather passive role in seed choice. And what I mean with this also is they don't have really incentives to alter seed choices. They have a more passive role here. And let's get into a bit of detail. So for example, if we look at how an agro-dealer decides on which varieties to add to their stock and which not, what they do is they look at demand from farmers. They want to see guaranteed demand for their seed they put in their store. Secondly, if you look at their promotion, strategy, so on the visual on the right, you see what type of seed promotion strategies agro-dealers used. So you'll see if for the first one, there was around 70% of the agro-dealers putting the packs on display. Now the colors of the bars show how often they do this. So if it's very dark, that means they do it all the time. If it goes lighter, it means that this practice is useless. So what we see is that if agro-dealers really engage in promotion, it is mostly at a low cost for them. They will put packs on display in their store. What I mean is that they will put it more visual than others. They will recommend it to customers, verbal recommendation. If they get posters from seed company, they will put up the posters. But more active engagement, giving free seed samples, giving workshops, showing it in demo plots, giving discounts to farmers, that's not really there. They don't engage in that, and they don't really see it as being their main task. Third, the constraints. What are the agro-dealer constraints to sell more seed? And these are still very basic constraints. It's a lot of cash constraints. So looking on the right here, this is the most important constraints for them to sell more seed: inadequate cash for more stock in the store was the most frequently mentioned constraint for selling more seed by half of the agro dealers, showing that there's still small-scale businesses dealing with a lot of problems other small-scale businesses have, and this is one. Cash is definitely one of these things. A second one here is timely access to seed, and this is about the seeds. Let's say the dynamics of a seeds, the seed sales. It's a lot of seed that gets sold in a very short amount of time. Now, coming back to this point, timely access to seed for agro dealers from the seed companies used to be the biggest constraint for agro dealers to sell seed. This is going down quite a bit, also showing that seed companies really do their job at getting the seed to their distributors in time and making sure that they can sell or use the same sales window optimally. And then the profits. What we saw is that agro dealers, so we looked at how much profit they make from the seed, and we saw that the average profit margin for seed is not that high. And very important, it also decreases the more intermediaries there are between the seed company and the agro dealer. If there are wholesalers involved or other shops, then we see those profit margins decreasing. What I'm not saying here is that it's important or that this profit margin distribution is not the right way or that it should be higher, but it's just to point out that from their point of view, they with low profit margins, there's not a lot of incentive to take a lot of risk here. So also linking to that more lower incentive to really go and drive change for new varieties. Now, secondly, let's look at the store. So what we did, and this also comes from us traveling through Kenya, going in the first year, going from agro dealer to agro dealer, from village to village. And what we saw, I think, is that there's quite some differentiation in what the store looks like and how seed is being sold. And just, I'll try to tell it all with a visual. So these are two different village level stores where the one above had a nice box where he stored the seed. This is a really seed selling moment. He had this nice area where he sold where you could perfectly, you walked into the store and you know, oh, this is available. These are the brands, these are the products, this is what we need. The store below, on the other hand, sold, and we counted, sold 6 different maize varieties, but there is no way of telling what they are, where they are, or like if you were a farmer walking into that store, you had no idea what was available or how you could make a choice. So inspired by those differences we saw, we started looking at this more systematically. And we had 10 criteria on which we evaluated stores, but let me show you the 5 most important criteria. So first of all, visibility of varieties. What we looked at, and that's what you basically see on the right, how visible are varieties in the store? When you walk in as a farmer making your choice, how easy it is to see what's available. What we saw, so what you see in the bar charts is we evaluated our stores. We said it was a 1 to 5 score going from very bad to very good. Very bad to bad, that's in red. On average score, we put it in yellow, and the very good scores and the green, and the good and the very good scores are the green part of the bar chart. So visibility of variety. What we saw, that was 3/4 of the agro dealers we actually saw. So I'm not saying that the one below was the only case we saw like that, but most of them do basically give a rather good representation of what seed is available. Another one was proximity of the seed. So how easy it is for a farmer walking in to read what's on the bags, because often these stores do have some kind of barricade that you cannot walk into the store. But you do, as a farmer, I think, want to see what the bag look like. Is there information on the bag you want to see? Maybe you want to hold the bag as well. So we looked at the proximity of that seed, and which was also, again, 1/4 was like you had seed like the store on the bottom, somewhere in the back, but most of them it was good to very good. Now, targeted sales. What we wanted to know is, do agro dealers in some way, like when you walk into a store, would it be clear what the agro dealer's view was on what seed to buy? Would he promote one variety, maybe because he thinks it's better for the area, maybe because he has a let's say some kind of deal with the seed company to do this? Is this happening, targeted sales? And most of them didn't have target sales. Now, posters and flyers. a lot of if you look at ways seed companies use methods to make farmers aware, posters and flyers is mentioned quite a bit of time. It's one of the most popularly used methods besides radio. But when we walked into the stores or we looked around our stores, it didn't have a lot of information in the store about the seed. And what I'm also saying, some really had then a poster, but there was a poster put on there maybe 10 years ago and was still hanging in the store with text barely readable. So if we talk about good promotion, good flyers, easy to see, it wasn't a lot of things. And the last thing, price indication. We had one store with clearly visible prices, or and one store with average price indication, meaning 2 stores out of 80 stores with price indication. Now, it can be common just not to report prices, but it is it's one of the few ways in which seed companies, if they come in with a new variety and they don't have time to go to that store or put somebody in their promoted variety, to influence your audience. Price is a way, by setting a price higher than competition or lower than competition, is a way to get attention. But if nobody's promoting, nobody's giving price indication, it does put a limit on the methods you can use to inform farmers. So that was about the environment. Now on to the farmer. How does the farmer behave in store? What is he really using, or how does he make his seed selection? And I think this was for us, especially in the first year, the most, let's say, interesting or part that really stood out for us in finding. So before we go straight into that, we also want to show a bit, like the farmers we talked to, how they see Agrodealers. So what we asked them is, what are your key information sources when it comes to seed? Key information sources that you deem reliable. And what you see here on this visual is, we talk about information sources. This is really direct source where you get your information from, and channels. Channels are ways somebody who wants to give you information can use a certain channel. So radio would be seen as a channel, television as well, but other farmers are an information source. So as we can expect, and we know how important social networks are, we see that other farmers are the mostly used and reliable information source about seed for farmers. But Agrodealers were second in this. Agrodealers were the second most important choice about seed, much higher than government extension, for example, or NGOs, staff of seed companies. So this is just to show that the Agrodealer has an important role here. Now, looking at Agrodealers in the store, what did we talk about? So we talked about with farmers going to the store. Yeah, we talked about with these farmers, okay, what do you do when you go in the store? How do you prepare yourself? What's the attitude you go into the store with? And we also asked them what they did in the store. First of all, the preparation. Discussion of the seeds, seed selection. What we saw was that only 1 out of 10 farmers really had a detailed discussion at home about the seed they wanted to buy. What we also saw that 4 out of 10 had a small discussion, but half of them didn't discuss the seed at home before going to the store. What we also saw is that 2 out of 10 really said, I have sufficient knowledge about all the varieties available in my area, or that are relevant for me. That was 2 out of 10. Now, attitude to go into the store. We saw 8 out of 10 farmers walking into the Agrodealer said that they were 100% certain about what variety they wanted to buy before buying it. And 2 out of 10 saying that they had some interest in changing. And this really translated in the behavior in store. Only 1 out of 10 really at the moment of purchase asked the question to the Agrodealer, and 1 out of 10 really examined the available varieties in the store. Now, going a bit deeper into this, we also looked at how this behavior is different for men and women. So thinking about our visitors. So we stood out of those stores, different stores in rural and urban areas, and we basically talked to everybody in the time we were there coming out of the store. And what we saw was that 1/3 of the customers were female and 2/3 were male. So 33% was female. So we did and that's also what we see from other studies, women also use agro-dealers to buy their seeds. It's not just a man. So this was also, I think, a bit higher than we expected. It's not a 50-50, but we had a good number of clients who are female. And what we saw is they look for the same products. If you look at the varieties men and women pick in the store, they're similar. There's not certain varieties that appeal more to men or to women. Also, in terms of behavior, they had very similar behavior and engagement. They had quite limited knowledge about the seed varieties, little attention to available stock, and little interest to changing variety. Now, what we also saw is we had, let's say, around 500, we had 466 farmers. 20% of those farmers picked a new variety. So 20% of farmers, for some reason, picked a different variety as last year. And we were, of course, very interested in what drives now that change in your behavior. What is a trigger for you to change variety? And that's what we show here. What we show is that these were, or what you see on the figure here is the triggers for changing variety. And as we all know, if you look at number 1, number 3, the neighbor's farm, the fellow farmer, the social networks are important to influence farmer choice. But what we also see is that recommended at the Agrodealer does play a role. So in our total sample, we had 11% of the farmers getting a recommendation from the Agrodealer. And from those who got a from that our sample, 9% followed the Agrodealer's advice. So if the Agrodealer stepped in to give advice, and this was mostly in the case variety was not in stock, or farmers were not sure about what to buy, then the Agrodealer stepped in more. And what we saw is that then it did have a big success, and maybe more success than some of these other methods shown below, such as demo plot, extension officer, and radio television. So for changing a variety, they did play a role there. So to summarize, now just taking a step back from this and thinking about in our mission, like getting the right seed to the right farmer, what would be ideal for us? What would an Agrodealer look like? And if we thought about it, it would look like this. It would look more like a pharmacy where a farmer goes to get the right, or pharmacy, somebody goes to get the right product depending on the need. That would be the ideal in looking at it. What we see in reality, it's much more like supermarket behavior in supermarkets. There's a lot of choice, there's fast decision, and there's self-selection. So this is much more the reality. Now, we can want that pharmacy, that seed pharmacy, that's the maybe on the long run, that's the ideal. But in the meantime, we also have to live with the supermarket. In the short to middle term, also in supermarkets, behavior gets changed. I think we need to learn from supermarkets. On the long term, we might want to look more and more at building those seed pharmacies and building on capacity development with Agrodealers, where others really are engaging in, and there's definitely things going on. But now, going into the last part of the presentation, or the last part of our work, third study we did, we wanted to look at that short term. Can we influence seed choice at the Agrodealer? And we decided quite bravely, why not become an Agrodealer? So what we did is we set up an out of stock study. So what did we do? We became the Agrodealer. We went with a mock Agrodealer to rural villages. So we did this year. So this is really fresh results coming from March, April, where we were in the store, in the field. We got 600 farmers in 20 different villages, where more than half of our sample was female. And this work was done mainly in Machacos County, which is an intermediate dry zone, so especially important for drought tolerance. And what did we do? We went to a village, we set up our mock store, our mobile Agrodealer store, and we invited 30 farmers one by one to come into our store to buy a bag of 2 kg of maize. And the farmers who came into our store also got that bag and were allowed to take it home. We had 9 varieties in our store. So the market leaders were all there. All the popular varieties in that county were in the store, but also some of the newer varieties that are really trying to get some market share here. So how did we set up the experiment? Very simple, 3 steps. we had a short interview with the farmer before coming into our store, short pre-survey, where we also asked the farmer about what he is planning to buy. So I think 96% of the farmers we had in the store really said they already knew what they were going to buy. And we monitored that plant variety, which is really important. You'll see in the setup. Secondly, they came to our store and they could buy a seed. And third, we had a short survey about the choice they made and why they made that choice. But that's not everything. We split our farmer sample in half. Half of them went into the store and saw all the varieties they wanted to buy, all the varieties we had in our store, and including the one they were probably planning to buy. 50%, half of them, faced an out-of-stock situation, which means their plant variety was not in stock. Basically, we quickly took it out and they had a store with 8 varieties, and by coincidence, their variety that they wanted to buy wasn't available. So that's not the only thing we did. We had 3 store setups. One was a control. So a control store, meaning that there was nothing special about the store. And 1/3 of the farmers went into that store. That was both full stock and out of stock farmers. 1/3 had an information treatment. What does this mean? There was a big banner with technical information about all the varieties that were in that store. That information was taken from seed company leaflets. So we tried to transmit the information seed companies normally use to inform farmers, and we put that in a poster to really see if that influenced the way seed was chosen or even a variety chosen. 1/3 of them, there was a discount. What we did, we gave a small discount, 10% on 2 maize bags. So it was also randomly selected for each farmer. There was 2 bags where there was a 10% price discount. Now, let's go straight into the results here. This is all very new, very fresh, and look at what. And the first thing what we want to show here is how seeds being bought. So we also monitored really the seed choice. And what you see here in the columns, so the first column is when the plant seed was available. So the variety they wanted to buy when that was available. The column on the right is when the plant seed was out of stock. So first look at the time spent on their seed choice. It took farmers half a minute on average to select their variety when the plant seed was available. When their plant seed was out of stock, it more than doubled. It was 78 seconds. So there was a lot more time, a lot more thinking was put into the seed choice when their preferred variety was not available. Attention to the store. 1/4 of our sample, of our farmer sample, in the plant variety really looked at what was available. In the out of stock, this increased to 61% where they had a good look at the varieties available in store. Looking at asking questions, only 4% asked the question to our, I have to also give credit here, Pauline Muindi, our research assistant who was a fantastic Agrodealer. 4% of the participants asked her a question when she was in store. Asked her a question when their variety was there. In the out of stock again, the number of farmers asking questions rose to 60%. And we saw a rise in questions about information, traits, really detailed questions about the varieties, but also most questions were about where was their preferred variety. So a lot of farmers were asking about that. Now, this was about how a seed was bought. Now it's looking at what seeds they actually purchased. And also important to notify here is that for most of the key or the popular varieties, we also put a second variety from the same brand in store to see if farmers go or not to that difference. So purchase the plant variety. In the plant seed available, when the plant seed was available, 9 out of 10 farmers actually purchased the variety they were planning to buy. 3% switched, but went with the same brand, and only 1% went for the discount. When the plant variety was not available, so out of stock, there we have 33% sticking with they really stuck with the same brand, and our price discount, our 10% discount also led to 10% picking up the variety. So it had some effect there. But we also know that there's another very important, let's say, variable here that influence farmer choice, and that's their experience with it. So 9 out of 10 farmers, again, which is quite logical if you buy the same variety as last year, purchase a variety that they planted before. But this quite drastically dropped for the out of stock. So there was a lot more farmers who went for varieties that they only had seen in the field, heard about, and also 10% picked something they never heard about. So only half bought what they purchased. Now, our 2 treatments, we tried, let's try to influence our farmer choice and see how effective we can be. So first of all, the information. This was, so here's also a visual of the poster, or part of the poster was still longer with much more information. And what we saw when in the full stock situation, when the variety was there, it didn't change one thing. All the hard work on our poster was brutally ignored, and the farmers just walked to the variety they wanted to buy, and kind of, it didn't play a single role. In the out of stock situation, it did. It increased the time spent on seed choice. So what we can like, what we assume is that poster did influence the thinking process a bit. And I think it was also interesting to see that more questions were asked to the Agro-dealer when the poster was available. Now our promotion effect, also very interesting to see what happened there. Again, out of stock promotion was quite hard ignored, so it didn't really have an influence in the full stock situations, but it did in the out of stock situation. And here we already noticed something interesting. It had a significant influence on seed choice of men, and it also increased the time spent on choice of men. But on women, there was no effect. There was no effect on the seed choice, and women paid much less attention to the promotion that we put in the store. So that was the results from our recent findings. So the last 3 slides I want to talk about now is kind of a summary of everything we found. And let's start it off by saying that, yeah, it was tough. We want to see what we can do, how we can influence seed choice, and we got our feet in the ground, feet in the water, but it was interesting to see how we could, yeah, start thinking about this, because it's also something I think we didn't have a benchmark for this. There's definitely quite some companies here who have tried things and know things, but from a more scientific point of view, from a more rigorously testing these kind of methods, that hasn't been done before. So we really try to take a first step here. Now, looking at what we would see as the implications for seed companies. What we learned from the full stock situation, that confirms that farmers stuck to their plant variety. But we also have to say, because we didn't have those benchmarks, that our treatments were small. We tried some light treatments to influence choice. But the out of stock situation also showed that there is potential. Small price discounts did influence choices, and some visual information lengthened decision making. And what we also saw is that farmers are willing to look across brands. They were willing to switch brands. So also looking at that, I think what we want to say that the retailers, or what happens in the store, is relevant for expanding sales of new seed, but also patience is needed. Looking more, or taking a step back and looking at the implications for development. So this also comes from taking a step back here about talking to seed companies and seeing what we do with seed companies, how we work with them, how our colleagues work with them, and what we also expect of them. So we really help seed companies, and the Global Maize Program is doing, as we mentioned from the start, an excellent job here in providing new germplasm to them, helping with quality control, as also to make some promotion for the next webinar, where there will be a full session on quality control led by Walter. I think there's a lot of things happening there. We're also supporting them with technical backstopping, as I already said. But then when it comes to sales, marketing and sales, the delivery issue, we kind of expect from them that looking at what I started with, creating the awareness, making sure the farmers also buy their products in store, informing them about seed. We expect a whole lot of them. And I think there's an assumption that the private sector can solve the delivery issue that doesn't really hold, because there's so much at stake here in a very complex and different environment. And market intelligence for that is somehow a bit of a new field in field of research with donor-supported breeding programs. And we know that in companies they have been, or in large multinationals, they have been doing this much longer. But also here, because of all the good work, because of the growing, let's say, growing production of new seeds that is ready to go into the marketing, it is a new field we really have to address. And I think it's also important to say that we work in a complex environment without clear answers and without already off-the-shelf solutions. And maybe something more technical or critical, there's also a bit fuzzy borders between the role of public and private sector here. Okay, for example, make it a bit practical. We did a study where we worked with real products in the market. We had 9 varieties. Although being small, we did have to make some kind of choices on which products, from certain brands to include in our study, which not. So we really have to think about this, and we really have to sit together, because there's also lots of stakeholders investing here. As I said, the private sector, but also the public sector. We have NGOs working in this field. So it is quite a crowded area, but that's also, I think, really looking forward to the future, because if you just look at, and now looking at our own institute, the one CGR, there is now going to be, at least in initiative phase, a proposed initiative on market intelligence, which I think we are extremely happy about, and where Jason is also involved in, because it's great to bring this together looking forward. It's great that we are actually focusing strongly on this, and the same for seed systems. This is a field that has been going on much longer, but maybe also a bit more siloed between all the different organizations. It's great to see a more, let's say, a growing need to bring this all together. So now, stepping back to us, what are we planning to do, or where are we looking to go next? And one thing I think is fun, and what we wanna look at, is how can we induce farmers to think twice about seed choice? How can we really get farmers to think about this? And do women and men, like looking at marketing tactics, respond differently to different marketing tactics? Now, also costs and benefits of this, because if we want seed companies to do this, if we want seed companies to invest in this, there should be benefits as well. So what are the costs and benefits of investing in marketing for driving new sales, and how is the payoff on these? Like, also from a more rigorous perspective, invest in this, and what are then the thresholds in marketing investments and implications for small and medium-sized companies? So finally, I really want to thank the team that has been working on this in the field, the field team, and our partners we worked with, and really to also to our colleagues from IFPRI, Vivian Hoffman and Mike Murphy, to help with design and data analysis. Have been great help. Dr. Muranga from Calero, you were there in the field with us, helping problems. That was also fantastic. And from CIMMYT, I really want to thank Lila also for helping setting up this webinar series. And Kevin also for taking the time to review this and give your thoughts and comments. And of course, our project, AGG, Accelerating Genetic Gains in Maize and Wheat. It's really fantastic that we can do this, funded by our donors. We really want to thank. And also together with that, the CGR programs on policies, institutions and markets, as well as the Maize program. Thank you very much. And thank you for attending.
Thanks, Pieter. Can you read that? You covered an amazing amount of ground in 40 minutes. Again, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope we'll hope you'll be back for the second installment. And again, feel free to reach out, and we'll be happy to talk to you about seed marketing and the retail environment. Have a good rest of the day in the Western Hemisphere, and a good evening here in further east. So thanks, and have a good day.
Thank you too.